Happy New Year, everyone. Jaime Kalman Chipko here with some Jamie Magic for you. And I'm just going to keep it nice and short for you today. Um, I recently heard something from a therapist that I work with every other week. She is a parent educator, and her name is Barbara Olinger. And she is just a very compassionate, authentic, and wise therapist. And she's done great work with parents and kids. And I loved something that she touched on this week when I was in my group with her. We were talking about areas where we can practice self compassion, and that self compassion is a form of self care. And self care has gotten, in my own opinion, and maybe opinions of others as well, a little bit overblown. I think a lot of us think of self care as one more thing that we should be doing for ourselves that we're not, or that it's some big grand gesture that we make to ourselves, like go get a massage, go out for a fancy meal, go shopping, take a weekend trip with your girlfriends. There's lots of things that we can attribute to as, self care that we could say, oh, that's a form of self care. And all of that is lovely forms. All of that is great. Those are all great forms of self care. But when it feels too much, I feel like you're not going to do it because let's face it, if we would all love to go get a massage and have a girls' weekend and go on a fancy vacation and have a delicious dinner and take ourselves out and practice self care. That sounds great. Everyone I know would love to do that. But if you're not already doing it, it's not because you don't want to do it. It's probably because you either don't know if you can do it, if you can afford to do it, if it's okay for you to do it. You might not have support in your life that allows you to do it. Your family constructs and dynamics might just not be there allowing you to do it. You might have subconscious mental blocks that, make you think that if you did that, you would be doing something wrong or being selfish, and then you'd feel guilty. And who wants to feel that? So there's a lot of reasons why, most of us are not doing grand gestures or, engaging in this popular idea of self-care. But I loved what Barbara brought up in our group this week when she talked about self compassion being a form of self care. Self compassion, it is simple, it is radically effective, and it's also completely free. There's no need to get a babysitter, there's no need to spend a ton of money. It's really about noticing where you are judging yourself harshly or being critical with yourself and just pressing pause. And one way that you can also jump into self-care is to notice when you're aware of like where you want to be in your life or where you feel you should be in your life. And then you're noticing where you are and there's a gap between them. Barbara was suggesting that we take a look at that gap, the gap between where we are now and where we feel that we should be or where we want to be, and understand that in that gap is actually the birthplace for self-compassion, because in that gap is the space for us to practice self-compassion. So what might that look like? Maybe you are looking at your bank account and you're nowhere near where you need to be or want to be. Rather than allowing that surge of negative self-talk, pour from your brain into every single cell saying that, you're a bad money manager, that you're not worth it, you can't make enough money, you're not smart enough, talented enough, don't have the connections, not brave enough, whatever it might be that your, mind is saying to you about why your bank account looks the way it does. You can notice those thoughts and just press pause and allow yourself to be conscious of the fact that you are thinking thoughts. You're thinking thoughts because you're not happy about where you are. And that's okay. So just that right there is practicing self-compassion, because you're noticing the thoughts, you're recognizing the feelings, and you're saying, even though I am thinking these thoughts and feeling this way about my situation and about myself, I am okay. I love EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and it's a form of acupressure and positive psychology to reduce stress. And one of the first things we do in the setup phrase when we're tapping is we say, even though I have these feelings, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And a lot of people feel like that's super cheesy saying that. They're like, oh, I feel so weird saying that. Like, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. But I don't, Jamie. And I'm like, I know. And that's why we say that, because we're actually laying the groundwork for self compassion. We're telling our minds, hey, you do have these thoughts. You are experiencing these feelings. We're not going to spiritually bypass them or cover them up with a bunch of, flowery affirmations and act airy fairy until we feel better. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to really be with where we are. We're going to recognize and accept our feelings as valid, but that we also give ourselves the space to know that somewhere in our minds, we are capable of moving through this difficult situation, and that we are, in fact, deeply worthy of a much more peaceful experience than what we're having right now. But it's hard to get there when we're in the space of beating ourselves up. So I give you permission to, as they say in the UK, mind the gap. Mind the gap. There's a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And instead of using that gap to beat yourself up or create a negative story, I just invite you today to instead use that gap to say, I'm not where I want to be today, and that's okay. I'm going to deeply and completely value and accept myself anyway. And I will get there one step at a time. And I can breathe and accept these feelings. I can question them. I can learn from them. And then the kindness that you afford yourself might just be a few minutes of deep breathing or reading a book or a magazine or something that takes your mind off of whatever you're, dealing with at the moment. Give yourself a 10-minute break and then get back to your day. I hope that act of simple, affordable self-compassion works for you today and gives you that little, detachment from the stress and gives you that little reprieve that you need without costing you $1 million in doing it. So here's to letting go of guilt in the new year for taking care of ourselves. I wish you an absolutely fabulous day. So take care until next time. Bye-bye.